Hello. Uh, this is my trial, my first episode, so just bear with me. My professional name is Merzy, and this is my very first, like I said, trial and first episode on The Catalyst Writer. I will have another program on the same channel called Merzy Rewrites the Faith. But I want to tell you about yesterday. I attended a forum at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C., downtown. I asked two questions at the end of the forum, but then I thought I hardly agree with the answers given to me. I asked about if the conflict between the Sunnis and the Shiites are taken into consideration with regards to foreign policies within that region, and how much of that conflict really permeates the Middle East. Well, the answer was that the speakers, or the so-called experts, said that sectarian conflict is not really the core issue, but rather the governance in these countries. That is mostly true, but I think they're still missing the point. The conflict between the Shiites and the Sunnis go back centuries ago and was about who was the rightful heir to the Prophet Muhammad's leadership. So it went on for centuries. Excuse me. Nowadays, the Middle East is still being choked by the same issue, with ISIS having this religious conflict as one of the backbones for their jihad. They want to re-establish a caliphate from both Muslims and non-Muslim people. With regards to governance, to quote from Michael Warren, a former diplomat, U.S. ambassador to Israel, he stated that Sunnis may carry out suicide bombings and international terrorist attacks, as America learned on September 11, but Shiites from Tehran to Beirut wield far more hard military power and pose a much larger threat to Israel. It's of a different magnitude entirely. So for the speakers to tell me that that's not the issue, my reaction is, honestly, I think it's duh. I think you're missing the point, or your eyes are closed. I think part of the problem I noticed is that with supposedly policy makers or policy experts, they try to fit in or analyze situations and then see which paradigm or model fits. And when one situation matches when one situation exhibits like several matching points, they say, aha, this is a very valid explanation, versus someone who's just open-minded, analyzes the situation as it is by smelling a coffee, or like smelling the wine, and very keenly observes, or even almost intuitively deciphers or analyzes what's in it, and then gives the analysis. Oh, this is that flavor, or that flavor, or this or that flavor. It's less methodical perhaps, but still observation and being methodical are still scientific, part of the scientific procedure. And crude as it may seem, it still works with validity. I think if people just rely on paradigms and models, they tend to miss the bigger picture. And then it could become an ego thing if criticized. My other observation yesterday was that one of the speakers tend to be a typical American bureaucrat. Tend to be typical of some of the American bureaucrats I've encountered. And honestly, it has also been a viewpoint in American institutions or schools that we kind of belittle institutions outside the United States. I thought one of the speakers was belittling Vladimir Putin, saying in fact that they'll probably accomplish little. Russia doesn't have much resources, But with that minimal resources, they're strategically focused. Which, on the other hand, I think it's kind of smarter. He did acknowledge, though, that somehow United States is a giant who wants to get everything, but it doesn't seem like we're sure of what to do. Or at least that's how it sounded. Well, belittling Putin as much, I think he's going to be the power broker between Turkey and Russia and Syria. One of the speakers was claiming that Russia wanted to get Turkey out of NATO. That was the motivation. And Turkey, on the other hand, was pitting US and Russia, trying to see what Turkey can get both from them. I honestly don't think Putin's primary motive to ally with Turkey was to get Turkey out of NATO. I think Putin is merely thinking that Turkey will be useful for Russia. Putin has been trying to build ties with other countries, but since he's known to wear a wolf's clothing, everyone's suspicious of Putin. He's also been sensed to still wanting to build Russia back to its old glory. It was an empire. The thing with Turkey and Syria is that it has problematic border situation. Syria had already absorbed thousands of Syrians. Turkey had already absorbed thousands of Syrian refugees, which of course will impact Turkey in the long run. Assad, on the other hand, is more concerned of consolidating his electoral power. So how Putin will balance both men in his court will be pretty interesting if he forces one or both to compromise in order to keep his backing. In the meantime, we, the United States, is waiting for the situation to sort itself out, it seems, and then redefine a role based on this outcome when the dust has settled. Because right now, I don't think we're really clear on the U.S. foreign policy in that area. I don't believe that the United States really wants to get involved with the Trump administration saying that's not our war, that's not our battle. But I think what they're missing is that in the geopolitics of the Middle East, it's I'm trying to do this now impromptu. The Middle East is a geopolitical space where if US withdraws, Putin will be very much interested to move in as the most influential country in that region. Right now he's trying to play the power broker, or he's trying to be influential in almost as many countries as possible in the Middle East and Africa region. And the United States, if we want to keep our global supremacy, has to be very, very keen on that. We cannot say that it's not our war, because anything global, if you want to keep our global supremacy, that means then we have to be on top of all global affairs, global political and military affairs. As much as huge as it sounds, I think that's the truth. So the question with regards to what will be the future of Syria. Right now, the concern is to keep the situation controlled with ceasefire. But I think the best way or the best time to make an effective peace brokering or peace agreement is after everyone has sat down and and thoroughly discussed each other's agenda, and then make an agreement on how to do that. So if we look at Syria and Turkey, there's the border issue, and then with Syria there's the consolidation of electoral power, and then Russia has both the Syria and Turkey on both sides, and he's capable of having both countries implement Russian interests if he desires so. And then on the other hand, the United States has to keep its presence in that arena. I mean, to have a foresight in this situation, the US really needs to be clear with its global foreign policy. But it also has to take into consideration what I was talking about, the identity of the Shiites versus the Sunnis. Because, and I think that's often overlooked, because that's kind of like the core with the peace mostly in the Middle East, where these are rival factions. I mean, they've been fighting for centuries, and until you see how that can be resolved through modern means, I think power broker or a world leader will be much more effective once he figures out that, okay, this is the key, and this is how we're going to implement the change, if there's a compromise or agreement or whatever it is. But that person has to be pretty gutsy, given that these tend to be violent people, and they would want to have violent means to get their objectives. So I think that's my analysis for now, and this is also my practice for this online video. So until the next videotaping, thank you and have a good day.